the issues. Let's talk about Barclays Center. Is Barclays Center a good thing for Brooklyn?
I think it in itself is, I mean, it's a great facility that people, tens of thousands of people are flocking to now. But I think if you look at the costs have been untold numbers of people who have been essentially ousted from their homes. You have a tremendous amount of use of eminent domain, which is something that I have serious problems with. And a decade later, after all the promises of affordable housing and job creation, we have the stadium and a few popcorn vending jobs. So if you ask me, all in all, is the stadium good? Well, tens of thousands of people are going to it, and the Nets are doing much better. But on the other hand, what have we gotten in terms of the huge amount of public resources that have been put into this? And I think that the promise is nowhere near met in terms of what was supposed to be delivered for the people of Brooklyn and the people of New York City.
If you were mayor, what would you have done differently?
I have called for ending many of these subsidies, if not all the subsidies that are given to major corporations and private developers, supposedly in the name of job creation and affordable housing construction. And we have seen the great majority of these cases through my audits that I've conducted, that these jobs and promises almost never materialize. Years after, these major entities get huge subsidies from us, whether it be outright capital grants or tax abatements or even rezonings, which unleash a tremendous amount of public value. The promises don't get made. I have called for an end to these kinds of subsidies. I've called for
and a complete end to them. Because, Mayor Bloomberg, when he ran for mayor, said, well, I don't believe in them either. And then when, now he says it's not really a subsidy, we're just helping out with infrastructure, because how else do you spark big projects?
The reality is that most development in this city is done as of right. And there are still people investing plenty of money in this city. You see construction going up in many parts of the city. In my hometown of Flushing, don't hold it against me that I'm from Queens here. Although I heard that Brooklyn was the second most diverse. I'm trying to figure out which you meant was the
but
first.
But Brooklyn is the biggest, so
Okay. In my hometown of Flushing, there's huge amounts of activity and development. And that's taking place without public subsidies. The reality is that most jobs in New York City are created without subsidies. Most development takes place without subsidies. So why would we be giving huge amounts of taxpayers' money to these private developments, getting very little in return, and allowing the mayor, who was opposed to these kinds of subsidies in the first place, to now say that, oh, well, we need it in order to develop New York City. In fact, I think most of these subsidies have been direct giveaways to majorly connected developers with very little benefit in the order to the taxpayer.
So would you be happier if Barclays Center had never been built?
I would have been happier if they were able to build a center and attract the Nets here without expropriating hundreds of millions of dollars of direct subsidies from the city, the state, and the MTA, kicking out how many families out of their homes, making these promises of job creations and having no jobs or very little real jobs that are available to Brooklyn residents today.
You were controlling the city when the Barclays Center deal was put together. What do you think of that deal?
I was supportive of the Barclays. It wasn't, I'd like to say the Barclays Center deal, but it was the Atlantic Yards development. So it never was supposed to be, just a stadium. There was supposed to be housing and affordable housing. There was supposed to be housing for seniors. There was supposed to be commercial space. I supported the proposal, but it was supposed to be something other than just Barclays Center. And look, I was sitting there rooting for the Nets these days, but it was supposed to be more than just a Barclays Center. It was supposed to be.
Are you happy the stadium is there?
I think the stadium has worked. I think that it is in a lot of ways, and at some points has become more popular as it's there. But I think that the rest of where were the jobs that were promised? Where's the housing and the affordable housing that was promised? That was all part of it. Where are they? It was supposed to be about jobs. It was
So-
supposed to be about a number of different
If
things.
you were elected mayor, what would you do would you penalize the developer?
I think that if you enter in two things. I think that if you enter into an agreement with the city of New York and you don't live up to it,
That's right.
then you owe us money. Then there are penalties that should be brought against you. It's simple as that. But also, the way that development is done, it's
So if you were mayor, is that something you would push? Penalties from Ratner for not...
penalties against anyone who fails to live up to their agreement with the city of New York. But also, it's the way we do development. I had the opportunity to chair the board at the Battery Park City Authority. Battery Park City has been a community that's grown. It's been very well planned over a period of decades. You didn't give one developer the whole project. You broke it up and you picked multiple developers over a period of time. You built in good times and bad times. You did things that were economically, that made sense in good and bad times, but you also did things, that's probably one of the greenest communities in the city of New York. So I think that looking and not saying it's something I favored even before I chaired the board over at Battery Park City. Stage development done with multiple developers over a period of time. I think that makes more sense.
So let's start off with Barclays Center. Is Barclays Center good for Brooklyn?
Well, I saw all the nice low-income housing as I came here. It will be right, won't it? It'll have to be right. They'll have to build the housing.
So how long is it acceptable to wait for that?
Well, I don't think that it's acceptable to wait beyond the first 6 months of the new administration.
So what do you do?
You look at what it is, and you make them do what they're supposed to do.
And what if they don't? How do you penalize them?
Well, you have a choice in a civilized society. You go to court.
If you had been mayor when this deal was put together, would you have advocated for the Atlantic Yards
Yes.
development? Why?
Because I think that we need the low-income housing.
Do you think that it provided enough low-income housing?
Well, not yet.
All right, well, let's talk about Barclays Center. Has that arena been a good thing for Brooklyn?
Well, I'm the only candidate who's not accepting contributions from developers and lobbyists. The lobbyists have their candidates. I'm the people's candidate. The Barclays Center is here. I have a real problem with the way many of these development projects around the city have been addressed. For example, the developer made commitments about jobs, about housing. None of those commitments were kept. So I believe that as a mayor, we need to clamp down on these developers when they make commitments and get these huge benefits from the city.
When you
Not
say
committed to doing it.
they should have to pay penalties?
Yeah, pay a penalty, claw back, absolutely. It's outrageous that we give them these incentives and then they just basically go back on their word and the people of the city get snowed here. We're not doing anything for small business, but we're bolstering these huge, these mega developers, and they're basically not keeping their word. And we're seeing a lot of this around the city now. I was at a Lich rally this morning, battling to keep the hospital open because there's an effort to sell it off and build luxury condos in Brooklyn Heights when we need a hospital. We see libraries in Brooklyn Heights. They're about to be sold off to build luxury condos. So we've got to make this. We've got to make decisions about balanced development. Neighborhoods are not just about luxury condos. You need housing, obviously, but you need good schools, decent mass transit, decent healthcare facilities, and that's what I'm committed to doing.
So do you think that there's a place in this borough and in the city for large developments such as the Atlantic Yards development? Is that something you would promote in general?
I'm not against large development if it makes sense, if the community is involved and not ignored. What I've noticed around the city is that projects have ran down the throat of communities without any real input. If there's a project that benefits the city, it's a large project and the community is involved, and I don't see why we can't go ahead with it.
Barclays Center, was that a good thing for Brooklyn?
I think it was a great thing. I've been to Barclays Center. I saw Barbara Streisand there, and she did a great job. And it's a place, a destination. It's going to create a lot of good things for Brooklyn.
If you were mayor, is this kind of mega development something that you would promote more on?
If I were mayor, first of all, I believe in bringing more business into New York. I believe in transit-oriented development. We are developing on Myrtle Avenue right now. We're building 1 million square feet over there. We're also building, we'll be the first ones to build.
What's the transit over on Myrtle Avenue?
What's the what?
What's the transit over on Myrtle Avenue?
You have 3 different subways and the Long Island Railroad. You can live there and get to any place in the city. And people love to have the ability to be able to get around. And that solves the problem with congestion pricing.
It solves the problem with congestion pricing. Congestion pricing is a problem?
No, I voted against congestion pricing. I spoke against congestion pricing. I don't think we should penalize the people from the outer boroughs from coming to New York.